Everybody, welcome to the channel. I cover a lot to do with environments and so on, how to create them, and we're going to be using 4 major add-ons today. One is going to be Blender-OSM, where we can go in and select an area on any map, just pretty much anywhere. And it looks like I'm going directly to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so I can just pick an area and just be careful not to make too big of an area. Pull up, show selection rectangle, and then just bring it down to something sensible. You can see all these little buildings in here. It's going to pull all of those in. Looks like I'm going to take the old Capital District here. I'll click copy. Then I'm going to jump back over to Blender and I'll paste that. And once you've got that download complete, the add-on installed, make sure inside of the preferences, if you were to go back and look at it, that you choose a directory to store the OpenStreetMap and terrain files. Save that and hit the X. Now you have a few options. Once you've got in here, you can click paste, obviously put the coordinates in, and then you can click import. Before you do that though, you can import this as a single object or as multiple 3D objects. You can also import the roads, paths, forests, and other water objects. For this purpose, we're not going to be doing that because we're going to be using the Bagapie add-on to create some geometry node stuff to make it more procedural so we can get in there and create our own thing. But once you've found somewhere on the map you like, click import. It could take anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, maybe longer, just depending on how fast or slow your PC is. That took about 45 seconds, not too bad. The smaller the area, the better it's going to be. You'll probably see something like this, so just kind of roll the middle mouse wheel back and zoom out, and you'll have some nice buildings already preset for you, and they're effectively, on the free version, is about as realistic to the shape as they're going to get. Now, if by chance you took a bigger swath, and when you zoom out, you see something like this because it's just too big, go up to View in the End panel, go to the Clip Start End for the focal length for the 3D viewport, type in something like 10,000. You can still increase that if you need to, and if by chance when you're moving this around it gets kind of glitchy at the end, you can set the Clip Start to 1, and that should clear up those issues, and then you should be able to move freely in the viewport. But if you can't move this freely in the viewport, then you might want to delete a few buildings or go back and sample a smaller area. That way you can get even a slower PC can do 2 or 3 buildings. Now obviously if you want to do some preset up, links are in the description for all of the add-ons I'm going to be using. So that is Blender-OSM. That is the free version. If you want a pay version, it will do a whole heck of a lot more and bring it in with more realism and more textures and so on with extra features. The next one is going to be the Dream Textures AI. So if you come in here and set this up, you'll be able to basically spawn individual textures with just a word or a couple of words. Now you'll also have to import model weights. I have the full version EMA here, and when you do pull that up, and once you've got that set up, you'll need to do a vertical split and pull up the image editor, hit N on the end panel, and you'll see the Dream tab inside here. You'll need to go in here and select the weight kit for it, and then you'll be able to start actually dreaming up some textures. You can set these how you wish. You'll have a number of steps that you can do. It'll show a history, so you can pull some of those back up. You can click seamless if you want your textures seamless. You can go through and click concept art and a number of different things, but I'm going to go with textures for now, and I could type in brick just to get one texture to pull up. It's going to go and generate itself with a number of steps. 25 does seem to be good enough, and when you hit that, just wait for a moment and it will generate the texture for you. Just note it will take a while to start the first time, and then once it does that, you'll see these steps kind of popping up and it'll generate a nice brick texture for you. Now you can go down to the advanced if you have a little bit of a slower PC and bring the steps down, but 25 seems to be pretty good. Now if we grab one of our buildings over here and go to the material properties, we'll see that each one of these per the add-on was giving a wall and a roof texture. So what we want to do is something like a little horizontal split here, and I will pull up a shader editor. And what we want to do is just with this one, we can X out whatever we had on it. I'll just completely blank it out. Don't want anything there. I'll click new. I'll have the title here for the dream texture that was just created. You can pull this out as image and go ahead and tag that in. And then I'll pull out a mapping. If you have Node Wrangler enabled, that is an add-on, you might want to go ahead and get that. And then I'll pull out the vector type COOR, and I'll pull that out as well. So now under here, I can create a new texture set. I'll just click OK. Then I'm going to drop down, and you can see this is 4059. I'll grab 4059, and now the texture really just needs to be mapped out so it doesn't look like that. Real quick, I'll jump into edit mode, grab that top face, I'll add another material, click new, and just assign it. So that way I can have a roof material. I'll hit the / so I can individually work with this one for just a moment and then bring it back up. Now obviously the texture will not apply correctly, so I'm just going to unwrap this. I'll hit U, click unwrap, and then I can connect the UV to the vector here. Then I'll come up to UV while I'm still in edit mode with everything selected, and I will click cube projection. And so now I can come over here and kind of scale this thing up just a touch, and I've got these nice bricks. And of course I can scale that to however I want. Now also, if you really want to make this look even better, you could get the polygon Uber mapping node. I don't think it's necessary for this because this is going to be more or less a level of detail that's going to be sitting out just a little bit, so I'm really not too worried about it. Now I can come back over to the Dream Texture AI, and what I can do is I can put in something like roof, and we'll see what we get. So I'll click generate on that. Now sometimes you'll get something crazy that looks like this, and I really can't use that for the roof, so I typed in pebbles and hit generate, and so now I can get this kind of roof gravel thing going on. And so now I will attach that to the roof, and this can be my wall material. This one could be my roof material. And so now I can plug all of this in, and yes, you can rename this as well. So I'll just call that roof material, and then I can come down here and select roof material. And then I could sit here and scale this down if I wanted to, or I could just append in, and I'll delete this. I will append in the Uber mapping node. This is available over at the Polygon website. Highly recommend it. And I will get the Uber mapper, and then I can pull this up from the group and get the Polygon Uber mapping node. Now this thing's cool because I can plug this in pretty much like normal, and now it's going to grab that texture, and what we'll do here is we'll just look at this thing kind of as is. Doesn't look too good, but if I scale this up to something ridiculous like 30, you can see it's tiled. Now, here's the cool thing. Even though that's tiled, it's still hard to see. You could do a mosaic rotation, and it completely offsets it. So now you don't really see all of that. But you do see these lines, or seams rather. So I can put mosaic noise in and kind of curve those out. I can bring the value up a little higher to something insane if I want to, and kind of get rid of that. So that way you don't see it all. And it really, at a distance, breaks it up nicely and you won't see. And it works really well with vegetation. Another cool thing you can do is you can grab your building set and you can mark that as an asset. Take this blend file, and then of course you'll save it to wherever your actual asset pack folder is. And then you can pull that up as an asset. So I just pulled up an asset browser, and as you can see right here, if I felt like pulling this in, and I'll just pull back out, then I can drop this city right back in anytime I want and work with it if I like it. And then that's pretty cool because you could possibly just like take on the top view, and you could, you know, map this thing out yourself in smaller sections if you want to get an entire city. Completely doable. You know, and you can also do proxy instances for these. I've got a video that I will link as well, so you can turn each one of these into a proxy for the city, and it's super easy to do. You can do it with a major selection, and then like if you were to say select all of these because you wanted all of them except this is the one that's proxied, and then you can right click Control C and then you can copy those modifiers. But I've got a tutorial on that, pretty simple stuff. And that is the is viewport node in geometry node, so it works really nice for you. So if you do get this thing huge, you can absolutely do that. Also, don't forget, if you wanted to grab this and jump into edit mode, you can also select the correct face attributes and keep them connected, so that if you were to grab this and bring it up and like bring it on the Z, you can build this up and it'll replicate the texture instead of stretching it out, which is super annoying. And no, I'm not going to do any modeling extra to this per the tutorial, just to keep it short. And yes, the polygon uber mapping node would work really nice on this as well. However, kind of even so up close, that's a really nice looking texture. All right, so as far as randomization, all right, so you've got one facade now. So what you can do is just jump into edit mode, and since this is all linked geometry, just hover L over any of the buildings, and we'll just select 2 for right now. I'll click a new material, I'll assign it, I'll come down to the shader editor, and you'll need Node Wrangler enabled for this, and that's a free add-on in the edit and preferences. Just type in node and check it on. So hit Control T, and it's going to automatically drop in a image texture for you, mapping everything. And since it's already unwrapped, you're good. So just click new and OK, and then just drop down facade 001, which is what this was named to. And then if you want, you can scale the texture here. And as always, don't worry, I'll put links to all of this wonderful stuff down in the description. Okay, so back over to edit mode. I'm going to press L on a couple more buildings, and I just want to like really randomize this, and this will be a new texture. So I'll create a new texture for these and click assign, and I'll hit Control T. Now I don't have anything yet, so I want to get another building facade, so I'm just going to generate this. This saves you having to go online and just hunt down these textures all the time. It's a real pain. And you can sit here literally endlessly, type in building facade, bricks, windows, building, interior design. You can type in whatever you want into the subject matter and then pull up a lot of cool stuff. All right, this one is nice. I like this one, so I'll just call this blue windows. And this is going to give us an opportunity to do something a little bit different. I'll just drop a new texture in, click OK, and then I want to go to blue windows. I don't really see it here, so I'll just type in blue, and it'll be there, blue windows. Just in case you couldn't see that, you can type it in the search box, and it will pop up for you. I can go over UV and do a cube projection on that, and then I can either scale it over here and hit something like S5. That doesn't look too bad, but maybe S7 looks a little bit better. Okay, so that's pretty nice. Doesn't look too bad. You notice that all these come in with no bottoms on there, so we're going to actually put a plane under the entire city, and that could make it look a little bit better. So anyways, rinse and repeat this process until you've got something that you like. And like for the next thing, if you want to like select all of the roofs, that's a real simple thing to do, and then you can put varying roof textures on as well. So simply select any roof, and I am in edit mode, obviously. So select any roof and then go to select, select similar, and then select normal. And what it'll do is it'll select all the rooftops. And for now, you could add a new material and add something in like that, and then assign it, and all the rooftops will completely change. And once you've got that kind of worked out, you've got your texture over here. So hit Control T, pull this up, create a new texture for that. And I actually made one a little earlier. I think it was rocks or something like that, but just for the purpose of the thing, I wouldn't type in a roof because you're going to get some funky setups, but type in something like gravel. You know, gravel could work pretty good, and click generate. All right, so that looks like a rooftop to me, like you would find industrial and things like that. I've worked on plenty of roofs in industrial design, construction, things like that. So that looks pretty accurate. So what we could do here is just name this roof texture, something like that, or even roof texture 1. If you're going to add a bunch more, then I'll come back in here and I see roof texture 1. And now this is where that polygon uber mapping node comes in. So I'll just delete that, Shift A group, pull in the mapping node, and I'll just go into the UV to vector. And this is really cool. So if I hit 7 for the top view, you'll be able to see how this is going to end up. What I could do is bring the scale to, say, 30, and that by itself actually looks good enough. You don't have to do a lot more, but the mosaic rotation will really break it up for the human eye. And then if you have a seam, like you see a little seam right here, this is zoomed in like really far. It's hard to see, but like right here, there's a tile seam. Okay, so if I take the mosaic noise, that disappears. And for the most part, it's completely not visible to the human eye at all. So now you've got this nice gravelly roof, broke up, looks good. And then you can fix the scale and everything else. So moving on, what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to Shift A and add in a plane. And technically I don't want to do that in edit mode. So let me jump back out into object. I'll add in the plane, and now we could scale this up over here. It gets a little hairy, so I'll hit N, and I want to pull up the transform for that, and I could bring the scale and dimensions up here if I wanted to. So it looks like it's going to be pretty big. So I'll just kind of roll that out till I cover my city, and then I can, let's see, I'll roll that out on the X a little bit more. Then I'll roll it out on the Y a little bit more. And I want to give a little bit of room because I'm going to put some trees along the side, and that's going to actually end up to start looking pretty good. So don't forget, save your work. It's a major pain in the butt not to. Now I'm not going to get too crazy and do any of the other texturing and all the other modeling and things like that right now. But what I do want to do is I'll hit the end panel, and I'm going to pull up the Bagapie add-on. If you don't have Bagapie, you're really missing out. The free version will effectively do anything you can think of with geometry nodes. However, you don't have the asset pack with it, so you're still going to need to have some stuff to scatter, right? And the asset pack, I mean, it's like $85, but it's 100% worth it in my opinion. So you got to check him out. The add-on itself is absolutely free, but just for now, for like Blender Kit, I'm going to pull up low poly grass, and I can pull up anything. This little vegetation, I can pull up these trees, something like that. So I want something like this grass mix. I think it's going to come in incredibly small. So I just dropped it on top of one of the roofs so I could see it and zoom in a little bit. And then you could / once you've got that selected, and you kind of see what you've got, so you don't have to worry about trying to zoom in all the way. Now from here, just so you know it's like to scale and somewhat visible, then you could scale this thing up just a little bit. Doesn't have to be too crazy, something like that. And then the Control A, apply that scale. Now for our plane, we definitely want to Control A and apply scale here. Go into edit mode, press W and subdivide this because we're going to scatter and we need the loop cut. So Shift R a few times. The more you do it, the better it's going to look and the more geometry that the node is going to have to work with. So especially if you're weight painting and things like that, you're going to have better placement, more fine-tuned placement. And so also important to note that if you subdivide this too many times, you're going to really significantly slow down the viewport. But I got away with like 10 there, I think 10 or more. So I was right about 10. And I probably could do a couple more, but I'm going to leave it like that because that's going to be pretty good. Now, another thing I want to do is I want to bring in a tree. So I could do a little bit of a cheat code here. And what I'll do is I'll just delete all this stuff. And I want to type in forest. And this is just because I don't have the access to those assets, and I can drop the forest in, and I'm going to let you know the forest itself is pretty massive. So for that to come in so much smaller is a big deal. So I'll just click everything, delete, I'll click that and delete. Now what happened is all the trees just went to the 3D cursor. So I could select all this and hide it, and boom, there's my trees. So what I'll do is I'll bring those out just a touch. I think that right about there should be good enough, and Alt-H. Yeah, that was pretty good. And then G and X to kind of bring those back so I don't lose them. Okay, so the workbench is another engine inside of Blender, and that is the one that you see when you're in solid view. So it doesn't handle a whole lot, especially when you start instancing, even if you're using proxies. So I'm going to scale the entire cityscape down considerably, and I'll take the plane and I'll scale that down as well. Now I think that 39 by 46 and make sure to apply. I think that that will actually be lovely for what we're doing now, and I'll apply the scale on everything. And I want to grab the trees and bring them back over, so I'll place the 3D cursor over here. I'll left click on one tree, shift down arrow a few times, and then hit shift S selected to cursor. And now I've got all of those trees kind of jumbled up into one, no big deal. Now what you can do is you can grab one of the trees, scale it however you like, grab the tree, shift right click here on the plane, hit J, and I'm going to hit scatter paint. I could bring this down to something like 10%. It's going to paint on proxies anyways, and just hit OK. And now from here, I'll be able to actually paint on the trees. Now, if you don't like that, you can't see it well enough, you can actually bring that percentage back up a little bit once you kind of see how your computer is going to operate. And then you can bring up the strength and kind of start painting in your little forest however you wish. And one little quick tip, if by chance your trees come in looking crazy, just pick up like a good view like 1 and turn on origins. And then like if the origins over here, it's definitely not going to sit right. So what you'd want to do is just put the 3D cursor to the base of your tree, hit shift S, and it will snap that back. Now I can hit 3 and kind of pick that up and see if that actually looks good. And there we go. That looks pretty good. And I'll save that. Make sure to turn off origins if you had it on. And now all your trees should come in nicely. Now, if you don't have it aligning to the normals, you can switch that as well if you wish. So I just thought this is hilarious. I just go ahead and show the next trees. They kind of come in dead, you know, because you move the stuff around too much. And the assets really weren't meant to be, you know, thrown in like that. But like I said before, it's an easy fix. And I'll just snap the 3D cursor over here. I could just shift A and do an all transform, and then everything kind of snaps in a little crazy place. Now I'll turn on the origins, bring the cursor over here, shift S, cursor to world origin. I'll snap over to 3, and let's get a little look at that. That actually looks pretty good. So now I'll pull out of Origins, go back over to Solid View, and take a look at what I've got. And now these will be properly scattered. All right, I won't carry it too far. Just want to go over the principles. I will turn on proportional editing, go and edit, grab one vert. I'll bring it up on Z, and then I'll roll the middle mouse wheel out just a little bit. And you know, I can just add a little bit of pizzazz to this thing. And, you know, fix it up how you want it. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. And yes, you can do all of this with the terrain editor as well, the ANT landscape. So if you want to make something kind of cool, this should definitely get you started. And you, like I said, you can make the one big sci-fi building in the middle. And one final thought, just to have a little bit of fun, just grab that one big loose building in the middle, create a new material for it, click New, Control T, go New, and then what you can do is you can type in something like sci-fi building and hit Enter, and then whatever you end up getting, make sure that you also are going into edit mode and clicking Assign, so that whatever you do get, you can put in here. I'm going to put the Uber mapping node in real quick because I really like how this turns out on a regular basis. And I can see Alt right click there. Yeah, let's just do it the quicker way. Put in something like 30 once again. And once you've got that kind of scaled the way you want, and I really cranked up the density of my forest, you could take the color output from said alien texture and plug it directly into the roughness map. And what that'll do is give you a little bit of a shininess for your windows. And I know this texture is funky, but it's a sci-fi building. And so from here, you could easily put in a color ramp, and it gets, not that one, it gets kind of endless. And there's a ton of different things you can do. And it's kind of, my viewport's getting a little heavy right now because I upped all of these instances. So just instead of turning them down, I'm just going to hide them for now. And you can kind of play around with the glossiness and, you know, how that's going to hit the side of the building, the lights, and so on. So then you can throw in some HDRI, you can throw in a sky texture, whatever you want. If you're using Blender 3.4 or higher, when you put it on CPU rendering, you will actually get path guiding, and I've got a tutorial on that as well. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next tutorial lesson.